Okay, so today we're going to be looking at downloading Pi-hole and installing this on a Raspberry Pi 2. So this is an ad blocking piece of software. You load it on top of the Raspbian operating system and then point your clients to it, and it basically black holes all of the advert domains, which is gives you a clean browsing experience. So the first thing that we want to do is we're going to download the software, then we're going to create an image on an SD card. We're going to load that into the Raspberry Pi, then we're going to load the Pi-hole software, and then we're going to point our clients to it, and then we're going to show how it's blocking the adverts. So the first thing we want to do is download the image. So you want to navigate to the raspberrypi.org website, go to downloads and then Raspbian. I'm going to be using the Raspbian Buster Lite, so this is the one that doesn't come with all the bloated software, so it's just going to be used for the ad blocking software. So the first thing we want to do is to download that. I'm going to save that onto my desktop. That'll take a few seconds to download. Next we want to unzip the image. I've already done this, but I'm gonna go through it just to show you guys. So we want to extract that. I'm going to put that again onto the desktop, and I'm going to install it in here. It'll prompt me to overwrite, but that's fine. For you guys, obviously this will be a new install. So once that's done, which it has, we can see the image here. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to write that to the drive. So I'm going to be using Win32 Disk Imager. There are others, but I know this one works, so we're going to run this. What I'm going to do now is to show you the drive itself, so the SD card. So if I scroll down here, you can see it's just an unformatted, unpartitioned raw SD card. So I'm using an 8 gig card. What I'm going to do is navigate in Win32 Disk Imager to the downloaded image, and then I'm going to select the device that I'm going to write it to. So you want to make sure that you're using the correct drive. You don't want to overwrite anything else that you've got attached to your system. And then I'm simply going to say write. Once this is downloaded, if you stick this into your Pi, you will need to set up remote access via the console. So we've got a way around that by creating a file called SSH that goes into the boot partition, and then once the Raspberry boots up, it will see this SSH file. It doesn't have to have any content in the file, but it will see this SSH file and it will enable SSH and start it for us so that we can then log in remotely. Nearly done. Come on. That's it. Okay, so that's all there is to that part. Okay, so once your drive has been created, the image has been written to the SD card, we want to add a file into the boot partition. The reason that we want to do this is we want to log on to the Pi remotely to install Pi-hole. You can do it via a console, but I don't have an HDMI spare monitor, so I'm going to be connecting to it headless using putty. So what I want to do is I want to enable SSH when the Raspberry boots up first time, so that I can log in remotely. So to do that, we want to add a file into the boot partition. So that is drive G that we've just created. As you can see here, we've got everything installed and ready. So to do that, I'm using a 64-bit version of Windows, and unfortunately you don't get the edit command in there, so we have to do it a slightly different way. So I'm going to go into my G drive. I'm just going to make sure that it's all there. As you can see, there's no SSH file created here. And what we want to do is we want to use a command called copy-con, and we want to call the file SSH. That will then basically drop the cursor down, and it's looking for an escape character so that we can exit and then save it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do Control-Z and then hit return, and that will then copy the file. There should be a file created now, so if I just have a look, there, as you can see, we've got an empty file called SSH, so that on boot up we'll have the SSH server enabled. So that's that part. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the SD card into the Raspberry Pi and then boot it up and then see if we can connect to it remotely. Okay, so that's the Pi booted up. So now let's see if it's enabled the SSH server. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a look and see if I can find it on the network. So I'm going to use Angry IP Scanner for this. It uses Java, so just be aware of that if you're installing it for the first time. That's going to go off and hopefully search the network. And we're going to be searching through something. Here it is. So the Raspberry Pi is running on 192.168.0.59. So let's see if we can log in. There we go. So that has enabled the SSH server. So let's maximize that. Okay, so we want to log in with the default settings. So the default username is Pi and the default password is Raspberry. Excellent. So once we've logged in, there's a few things that we want to do. The first one is we want to change the password from the default because we have enabled the SSH server. So to do that, you want to type in password, Linux format, so it's PASSWD. It'll ask you for the current password. So we enter Raspberry, and then we're going to set our new password and confirm it. So that's that bit done. The next thing that we want to do is we want to install the Pi-hole software. So to do that, we're going to use the wget command. So we just type in wget -O basic install.sh and then the location, which is https install pi-hole.net. That will download the software, and next we want to, well, it will download the installer. The next thing that we want to do is we want to run it, so we're going to use sudo for this. So we do sudo bash basic install.sh, and that will run the installer. And we want to accept all of the defaults. This takes a few seconds to sort itself out and start running, so we just wait for this. So in my instance, what I've done is I will be accepting all of the defaults. Now the defaults consist of all of the various places that it downloads and installs the lists of domains to block, so that you end up without any adverts on your pages. Now some of the web pages you will still see placeholders for those adverts, but the adverts won't appear. I've certainly noticed that there's been a few instances where I've been on the MSN network looking at their front page, and in actual fact I've found out that some of the content on there leads off to some dubious places. My Malwarebytes throws up a warning to say that it's a blocked access to some dodgy websites. So this will remove all of that with any luck. Okay, so as it says there, it'll turn it into an ad blocker, so we're going to accept that. Well worth donating to this project. It's really good and works very well. Certainly blocks all the adverts on my home network. I haven't installed it at any customer sites yet, but there's no reason why, depending on the size of the site, that it couldn't be. Okay, so it wants to have a static IP address or a fixed DHCP lease, but we're going to set it with a static IP address. We're going to be using Google as our upstream server. You could obviously pick any of these other DNS providers, but I'm going to be using Google. These are the lists, so I'm going to select all of them. And we're going to use IPv4 and IPv6 for our local network. So this is where we want to change our IP address, so we're going to set it for a static IP address. So it says, do you want to use the current settings? So no, I don't want to use them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my IP address to .3, gateway is .1, and that's it. Those settings are correct. I want to install the web admin interface, and I want to install the web server as well, because I don't have one on here, because actually what we did, we downloaded the Lite package that doesn't come with anything, so we want to install the web server. We want to log queries, and I want to show everything because I'm on my home network. You might want to change this if you're on a corporate network. That will then go off and download the additional web server software and the admin interface. Now once it's done that, you want to make a note of the password, because you'll need that to log in to see some of the stats on the interface. You can see there it's installing PHP 7.3, which is the latest. So this project is worked on actively all the time. So what this is doing here, this is just telling the system to start the web server and the admin interface on boot up. Just be a few more minutes. What it's doing here now is downloading the text files that contain all the domains to load into the system. And that's it. So need to jot down the password. So every install gives you a new password. So let's make a note of that. Then say OK. So that's it. So that's the install completed. So the next thing that we're going to do is just minimize these. Let's open up a web browser. We're going to navigate to 168.192.0.3/admin. There we go. So 115,865 domains on the block list. So what I'm going to do is we can log in here. We're going to enter the password that it gave us. Hopefully that's it. I'm going to tick the box that says remember me for 7 days. There we go. So we're in. So that now what we want to do is I'm going to set my local DNS at the moment to use the Pi-hole. So I go into my IPv4 settings and I'm going to set the DNS to be 192.168.0.3 like that. So that will now be pointing the traffic to the Pi-hole, and then I'm going to open up a new Microsoft Edge browser so we get MSN web page, and as you can see here all looks fairly normal so far. And then when we come to these adverts, the placeholders are still there, the content, the title is still there, but the picture is blocked, the content, the domain is blocked basically. So if I click on it, we can't reach it, which is great. So now if we come back here and we refresh our page, we should see up the top here, queries blocked 11, total queries down there, and the blocked domains msn.com, and some of the images here as well. So what I'm going to do now is go into the query log. That will show you what's been a good query, what hasn't been a good query, what's been blocked. But I'm going to go in and I'm going to update the lists. So whitelist is for you to add what you want. So you can go into the query log here and you can say, actually I want this blocked domain to be allowed, so you click on whitelist. And if you want an allowed domain to be blocked, you click on blacklist, and that will then add it to the relevant lists. If you want to disable the Pi-hole from blocking it completely, you just come here and set this. But for what I'm going to do, I'm going to update the blocked domains list. That's it. It did update. Yep. Oh, there we go. I didn't click on the button. So gives you the output here to say is there any more. So yes, it's retrieved something from here, and then the malware domains, actually it's not, there's no changes. And again here in retrieval there has been some updates, so it's downloaded and installed those. And then it tells you how many have been updated by gravity. As you can see here, 138,000, and I'm not sure what event horizon is, but there's 115,000 in there. If we go to settings, these are all the settings. As you can see here, lots of different information if you want to go through and change your DNS upstream provider. If you want to use DNSSEC, I'm not going to be using any of those, just accepting the defaults. We go back to our dashboard. So it works on the phones as well. So if your phone is connected to your local Wi-Fi network, it'll work, but you need to obviously update your DHCP setting. So once everything's ready, you can then go round your all of your other client PCs and set the DNS server to be 192.168.0.3 or whatever you've set yours to be. I've got a Virgin Hub 3. Unfortunately, you cannot change the settings in the DHCP scope for that. So the only way that you can do it with a Virgin Hub 3 would be to set the hub to modem mode only and use your own router connected to the hub, which sort of kind of defeats the object really. So until I can get round to doing that, what I'm going to do is I've just set all of my client IP addresses or my client settings on all of the PCs to use the new Pi-hole DNS server. I'm disappointed that Virgin Hub 3 doesn't do it, but in the future I will be setting mine to modem mode and then using my own router. So that's it, basically. I hope you found that useful. If you did, then it'd be great if you can like it and also subscribe to our channel. We'll be adding the video of setting the Virgin Hub 3 to modem only mode and then adding a second router to be able to set our own DHCP scopes in the future. Thanks for watching.